Look, if you're building or managing APIs, you already know they're the absolute backbone of modern applications. But that power comes with some pretty significant risks. So today, let's build an actual, actionable security blueprint to lock them down.
Just take a second and really think about that. Your API is the gateway. It's the front door to all your data and services. Are you 100% certain that door is locked, bolted, and has an alarm system against any threats? It's a huge question we all have to answer.
And we are not going to guess our way through this. No way. We're going to use the official Center for Internet Security, or CIS, guide as our source. This will help us create a clear, actionable blueprint for some really robust API system testing. So, let's start with the foundation, shall we? Every solid building starts with a good plan. Well, in API security, that plan is your scope and your objectives. This is the foundation that everything else is going to be built on. The key insight here, and this comes straight from the CIS guide, is that a well-defined scope isn't just bureaucracy, it's about surgical precision. It forces you to stop wasting time and resources on low-risk areas, and instead you get to focus your firepower on the API functions and threat models that are in actual danger. So how do you do it? Well, the guide gives us 3 really concrete steps. First, document everything. Write down exactly what is and what is not being tested. Second, get feedback. Go talk to your developers, your product owners, and anyone else who's a stakeholder. And third, you have to constantly check that your scope is lining up with your actual goals. It's a really simple but powerful loop. All right, with our blueprint drafted, it is time to pick our tools. In the world of API testing, those tools are the different methodologies you can use. And each one gives you a totally unique way to probe your defenses. So the CIS guide breaks it down into 3 main approaches. You've got black box, which is like being a total outsider trying to break in. You have zero inside knowledge. Then there's gray box, which gives you a little peek inside, maybe a user account. And white box, that's full access. You've got the source code, the architectural diagrams, everything. Each one gives you a completely different perspective on your API security. And here is the absolute crucial takeaway. You don't just pick one of these at random. As the guide says, your choice has to be driven by your threat model. For instance, if you're worried about some hacker stealing credentials, you use black box testing. But if you're worried about, say, a disgruntled employee, then you need gray or white box to simulate that kind of insider risk. Aligning your test to the threat, it's completely non-negotiable. Okay, so now that we have our blueprint and our tools, we need a process. I want you to think of it like an assembly line, a standardized, repeatable way to make sure you get quality and consistency every single time. Now, why is this so important? Well, the CIS guide points out that a defined lifecycle helps you stay organized and makes it so much easier to troubleshoot when things go wrong. When everyone's following the same steps, you create a system that is consistent, reliable, and predictable, all the way from that first line of code to the final deployment. And this cycle right here shows us exactly how to build that assembly line. It all starts with defining and sharing the process. No more secret handshakes or guessing games. Then you automate the boring parts, like moving code from development into testing. Now, this third step is critical. You have to constantly enhance it. Never let the process get stale. And finally, you document everything so that all your improvements become permanent. This isn't a one-time setup, folks. It's a virtuous cycle of constant refinement. This brings us to the final, and I think most powerful, piece of our blueprint, putting your security testing on autopilot. This is where you get to achieve real scale and real speed. The whole reason for doing this, straight from the source, is all about the speed of feedback. With automated testing that runs every single time a developer pushes new code, you're not waiting days or weeks to find a vulnerability. Nope, you get immediate feedback, which lets you catch and fix issues early when they're the cheapest and easiest to resolve. And what does that immediate feedback really mean? It means your security testing stops being this one huge, stressful event right before a release. Instead, it becomes a constant, tireless guardian working for you 24/7. Every single code change is automatically checked. This makes sure that front door to your API never, ever gets left unlocked. Not even for a minute. So, the action plan is pretty clear. First, you implement the testing frameworks and scripts. Then, and this is critical, you integrate these tests directly into your CI/CD pipeline, your continuous integration and deployment process, so they run automatically with every single code change. And finally, you monitor them. Automation is not set it and forget it.
You have to constantly make sure your autopilot is still flying in the right direction.
So there you have it, a complete blueprint for API defense, all the way from scope to automation, and all based on the CIS guide. But the final question I want to leave you with is this. A blueprint is pretty useless if it just sits on a shelf collecting dust. Is your security process a living, breathing document that evolves with new threats and changes to your systems? Because that is the real key to staying secure.